In this tutorial, we play around with geometry nodes to create magic mushrooms that look like this, where the mushrooms grow out of the ground based on where the ball is located. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, let's do something interesting. We're going to select this default cube, press numpad 1 for front orthographic view, press tab to go into edit mode, right click, merge vertices at center. Once you've done that, you want to press E to extrude, and I'm going to just zoom out to make this fairly big. E to extrude, X to lock it to the X-axis to about there, and I'm going to press E, and yeah, I'm making this huge, but we're going to scale it down afterwards anyways. I'm just making sure I don't run into any unexpected problems I ran into when I first tried to record this. Alright, there we go. This is looking pretty good. And we have got a mushroom. Tab to go into object mode. And we're in front orthographic view, that's the most important part. And we're adding a screw modifier on the Z-axis, and we created a mushroom. Currently, I don't like how it looks, but that could be fixed with some subdivisions. And I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to press GZ, just bring this down a bit so I can get a shape that I like. GZ. The other thing I want to do is just look, okay, that's actually fine. I'm actually happy with that. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now I can press GX. Chuck this over here, Shift D, X. Now I can say, in this one I could put S to scale this on the Z axis to make this one a bigger mushroom, just so there's variance. Select the original, Shift D, X, chuck it over here, press SX, make this one a stretched out one. You get the idea. And then we can also create one more mushroom, why not? Let's use a plane. Oh, delete, sorry. Shift A, let's use a cube. Tab, edit mode, right click, merge vertices at center, press E. And you don't have, you can literally rush it like this, or you can take your time. It's all up to you. All I'm doing is I'm pressing E the whole time, E to extrude. And a lot of these errors will be fixed by a beautiful subdivision. Something like that should be fine. One thing that I do not like, which I need to get quickly, G, X, just bring this out, hold on. Let's choose wireframe mode. Select all of this, GX, bring this out just a tad, and I think I might have made one simple mistake which we can fix quickly. Vertices, and we want to, where is F3, merge vertices by distance, and that should fix any mistake I made there. Then tab to go into object mode, and we're going to click on the screw modifier, turn that off, and then we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier, chuck this on level 2, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that. GX, chuck it over here. I think 4 mushrooms is more than enough. GX, chuck this all the way down here. I'm going to create one more thing for this just to make it interesting. Shift A, mesh, cube. It's amazing how many things you can make with this cube. Tab to go into edit mode, one vertex select, X-ray turned on, select these, or first select everything and just press S to scale this in, Shift Z. And once you've done that, press Control R, press Control R again, chuck this over here, press Control R again, chuck this over somewhere like that, select these top bits, right click, merge vertices at center, right click, merge vertices at center, and also select this whole thing, G, Z, lift this up to about there, and select this, Control B to bevel it, before we bevel it, let's press S to scale it in a bit, something like that, then press Control B to bevel, do the same with this, holding Alt, click on that, S to scale it in, Control B, and this, I'm gonna make this really stand out just a little bit too much. Tab to go into object mode, turn off X-ray, and now we're in object mode. Create a new collection, chuck all these cubes into that collection, and select this, and what we want to do is press G, X, S, Shift D to duplicate this, sorry, Shift D, X, S, S, X, make this one a thinner one, Shift D, X, S, scale this out, and S, X, make this one a fatter one, and that should be more than enough objects for the effect we're going for. Right, now that we've done that part, let's also select all of this, zoom out, press G, X, and just bring this all the way to the edge so we don't get it in our scene. And yeah, I should name them, but I'm not going to. We're going to press Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and here is our plane. Perfect. First thing we want to do is press S20, zoom out, there we go. And we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier, keep it on simple, chuck this all the way up to 6, and then we will be talking. And then we're going to add a displacement modifier, press new. Let's call this, well, let's use a good naming convention here, just as habit, underscore ground, Control A, Control C, paste it here, go to your texture properties, click on clouds, scale the size up to a size that you like. I'm going for something like that, like this, right click, shade smooth, and you could lower the detail if you like. I'm going to leave it on 2. Can you do 1.5 perhaps? No, just 1 or 2, it's fixed. Cool, that's perfectly fine for what we're going to do here, so I'm quite happy with that. And now we've got that. Let's create our core object, which is Shift A, Mesh. We're just going to use a UV sphere, which at the moment it's the perfect size in comparison to the rest. Numpad 1, select the ground. Let's name this plane ground, and then I'm going to press H to hide it so I can look at this UV sphere. I'm going to press Shift A, Mesh, empty, sphere, and I'm going to press S to scale this empty so it's in proportion to that sphere that much bigger. You can eyeball this. And now with that selected, I'm going to hold in Shift and select the sphere. The sphere is now light orange, the empty sphere is dark orange. I'm going to press Control P to parent it. Boom. So now when I move the main sphere, the empty moves along with it, which is awesome. It's exactly what we need. And I'm just going to press G, Z, just lift this up to about there and bring back the ground. G, Z, maybe bring it down to about there. Okay, cool. Now we are finally ready to begin. How long has this taken? Wow, almost 10 minutes. Cool. Now, we haven't, right, we're going to get to the fun stuff now. Now that we've selected this plane, we are going to lift this up. We are going to go to our geometry node editor, and you could press new, yeah, or you could just say geometry nodes, boom, and it creates one. And this is pretty much the first thing we want to do is we want to create we want to add this whole collection of mushrooms and weird shapes onto here. And the way we go about that is, number one, we press Shift A. We need to first create a point distribute. We need to distribute a whole bunch of points onto this object. I'm going to lift this up over here, Shift A, geometry, join geometry. We want to join this geometry that shows all the points on this map. So if we make this 2000, you'll see pretty much our whole terrain, which is pretty cool. But we actually don't, we also want to, let's put it on 100. We also want to see our terrain. And the way we do that is we have join geometry. We use the original geometry plus the geometry for these points. Boom, just like that, we've done it. And just for neat sake, I'm going to put this to the bottom. There we go. Cool. Now that we are ready, I will zoom in. I know you can't see a thing. I just want to make it a little bit neater. And there we go. All right, now that we've got point distribute, the next thing we want to do is press Shift A, go to point, and use point instance. We need to instance that collection onto our object. So we're going to just chuck it over here. Now we could use a specific object, and let me show you the first issue we're going to run into. We could choose a mushroom. Let me zoom out. Oh my goodness, it's so big that I literally can't zoom out anymore. Let me press N, and let me also just change the clipping to 200,000. There we go. So I can see everything. So those are all the mushrooms right now. And the way we fix that is, let me just select this. Let's rename this mushroom. As I'm fixing this, I'll rename it. And this mushroom, let me just change this over here so you can see that mushroom. View 200,000 or whatever. Cool. Now we can go over here. Numpad 1 for front orthographic, and now we're going to press S to scale this down. Zoom in, scale this down. Control A, apply scale. Ooh, it's getting there. S, scale this down more. S, scale this down more. Control A, apply scale. Ooh, we're getting there. S, scale this down more. My goodness. Apply scale. Now it's starting to look right. S, scale this down even more. Control A, apply scale. Okay, that's probably more or less the size I was hoping for. And we're going to have to do this with all the rest as well. So now we're going to select the next one. And we're just going to have to press S, scale it way down. And the only way we know if this is going to look right, scale this, is to actually, let's create, I'm going to have to just switch between this. Let me create a new window. Make this the geometry node editor. Select this. And then remove that. Then select that. So let's just zoom in over here. Press S, scale it down. Control A, apply scale. It's getting there. Zoom in. S, scale this down. Control A, apply scale. Yeah, that's S, X, S, Control A, apply scale. Control Z. I'll just leave it like that. That's fine. All right, now that we've done that one, which we need to rename, mushroom 2, let's select this one. And obviously we need to go over here, remove this, select this, and select the one we're working on. And the first thing we need to do is press S and scale this right down. Control A, apply scale, zoom in. S, Control A, apply scale, S, Control A, apply scale. Yeah, perhaps I want this one to be bigger. Control A, apply scale. So this will be the big mushroom. Now we can rename this one. Mushroom 3. And we'll move on to the next mushroom, which is this one over here. And before we move on, let's quickly apply it. Select this. Press S, scale this right down. Control A, apply scale. Control A, apply scale. Zoom in. S. Control A, apply scale. Let's make this slightly bigger. Control A, apply scale. Okay, there we go. That's looking pretty good. Rename it mushroom 4. And now we are going to move on to our next shape. This. So we'll select this, remove this, select this, and select this, and press S to scale this right down. Control A, apply scale. S, Control A, apply scale. Zoom in. S, Control A, apply scale. S, Control A, apply scale. S, Control A, apply scale. That's probably the size I'm going for. There we go. Let's use this one. Select this. Well, before we continue, let's quickly name this. Magic Object 1. Let's select the next one. Remove that, select that, scale this right down, Control A, apply scale, Control A, apply scale, Control A, apply scale, and that's still too big. S, Control A, apply scale. Yeah, that's fine. Then we can select this. Well, let's first select that and we call this Magic Object 2. Magic Object 2. And select this and then change this to this large piece here. Select it. Press S to scale it right down. Control A, apply scale. Control A, apply scale. S, Control A, apply scale. S, Control A, apply scale. Yeah, that's a bit longer. Cool, that's looking good. Now that we've done that, we can choose a collection and choose collection 2. Give it a second to load and remove whole collection. And we can change the variant. If we want to use the whole collection, you can select it, but it doesn't always work for whatever reason. Still don't know why, but let's just use a crazy variant. But more importantly, we probably want to use a density of 2000. Let's take a look at that. Let's try 1000. 500. Take a look at that. Yeah, so 500 would be the correct density for the effect we're going for. Perfect. You can also mess with the seating where everything is displayed, but I'm quite happy with that. Now we are ready to begin. Now I can just free up some of these tabs go to my geometry node editor. Now we can really start to make the magic happen. The only thing I recommend you play with, which could be quite useful, is change this from random to Poisson disk, and perhaps make the distance 0.02, and this will make sure that nothing is on top of each other, everything is apart. Perhaps you want to go 0. You can kind of just play with this and see what works. 0.03, 0.05. I'm going to use 0.04. Cool. So I'm quite happy with that. Distribution is quite nice, full of mushrooms still. And now we are ready to begin. All right, the first thing we want to do is, let's quickly go to our sphere over here and click on our empty. We want to get the distance between this plane over here and this empty, because all the effects we're going for is going to be in the relation to how far apart this empty is from this ground. So the way we go about that, we're going to click on the ground and we're going to add Shift A, attribute vector math, connect it over here. And because we want to get the distance, we can switch this to distance. And to get the exact location of this empty, we can just press Shift A, input, object info, and then select the empty and connect the location. But before you connect the location, change B's attribute to vector. So you got the X, Y, and Z coordinates, and then boom. And this top group, we want to know where the ground position is in relation to this, the location of this empty. And we're going to call, and because we're working out the distance, we're going to call this attribute, we're going to give it a name. You can call it whatever you like, but we're going to call it distance. And now it's figured that out. Still nothing has happened, but we've done the first step. Right, so the next thing we want to do, now that we've worked this out, we want the scale of these mushrooms and objects to disappear or shrink or scale depending on how close the sphere is to it, right? So the way we go about that is with a simple Shift A attribute math node. Connect that into here. And we are going to use multiply, not add. And what we want to know is the scale. So we're going to type in scale, which is a new thing we're creating. Click on, let's type in scale. Let the result be scale. But the thing that affects the result is going to be the distance. And currently, you also need to tell Blender that the scale is currently set to 1. So we're going to press Shift A, attribute, fill, connect it in here. And we're just going to call this scale. Make sure it's spelled the same. And then give it a value. Let's start off with 1 for now. Now for me, 1 is way too big. So let's make it 0.1, 0.25, 0.2 seems to be good enough for this example. And that's looking pretty good. And the reason why we needed to fill this attribute in is because we added it here, but this attribute did not exist. So we needed to create the scale attribute, which is what we did here. And then this information could then pull that information to populate that here. And obviously now if we select this ball, and we move this around, it moves the empty along with it. You can see if we move it up and down, it makes this shrink. But it's not working exactly like how we want, but it seems to be working to some degree. It's almost working as a traditional driver would, but it's not the effect that we're going. All right, so one thing we do want to fix off the bat is that if you look closely, it never reaches 0, and if we go all the way up, it could reach infinity, which is no good. We need to clamp that size. Also, when we're moving this here, it's not affecting the scene relatively. It's just It's almost like using the absolute value of the environment over the relative scene. So we're going to click over here and change it from original to relative. By selecting that, we're moving this, bringing this down. It seems to be working a little bit better. I'm still not happy with this result. One thing I want to do quickly is just adjust the scale again to 1. And now that we've done that, and press G, and yeah, so it's kind of working, but it's still going past 1. It's not clamped down. So we're going to quickly select this, and we want to clamp this down over here before the multiplying the scale, so forth. We want to press Shift A, attribute color ramp, and that already should fix the problems. Now when we select this and we press G and we bring it down, let me zoom in. Still not. One sec, let's select that. Yeah, we'll actually have to put in the the information. Right, so one thing we want to put here is the distance, and I'm assuming the distance should be fine for the result as well. And let me just turn wireframe mode on so I can just see a bit closer. So it does make it go all the way to 0 now. I just don't necessarily like the size. Numpad 7. Let's zoom in. See, it goes all the way to 0. But now we're going to have to tweak it just a little bit to get the desired result that we want. Let's just bring this up and select this. One thing I want to flip is flip the color ramp, so that wherever this ball is, it's almost like mushrooms are starting to grow and follow. And it's going to be holographic mushrooms, and it's almost like magic. It's going to follow along, and that looks pretty cool. But for this effect to work perfectly, check, now we can see 0. We probably want to adjust the scale a bit. At the moment, it's probably going a little bit too far. So we're going to have to modify this. And the way we modify how large the spread is, so currently it's about that much, and you might think that's perfectly fine. You might want it to be more. I'll show you how to do it either way. I'm going to use attribute, math, connect it in here. You have to connect it before the attribute color ramp, but after the attribute vector math. And we're going to change this. I'm going to use multiply in this example because I want it to be smaller. If you wanted it to be bigger, you would use divide. And I'll change this to a float amount. And I'm just going to choose distance here, DI, choose distance, and once again choose distance. It will be nothing because it's multiplied by 0, but if we make this 2, it will be a lot less. If we make it 3, it will be even less. You get the idea. So each now if we change this to divide, it would be bigger. But I think you get the idea. But I actually wanted to make it less, so I'm using multiply. Multiply by 2. Multiply by 1.5. Yeah, 1.5 is what I'm going for. All right, to go over the entire thing, we got our point distribution with a Poisson disk. Reason why we're not using random is because we don't want them to go on top of each other. We're using Poisson disk, and we have a distance of 0.04 that they have to be apart, and a density of 500, and we're using random seed 3. We're using attribute fill. We create the attribute scale here, which was very important later on when down the road when we use scale at the end here, so that we can make these objects disappear and reappear. And after that, we then used the attribute vector math, which is kind of the core behind everything. We used the distance between the empty and the ground, the plane, to create the math, which is in these 3 nodes here, which is number 1, the attribute math multiply, working out the distance. of the empty to the object, and this is basically just deciding how much of the spread will show over here, which is quite useful. And then we used an attribute color ramp to lock in 1 and 0, white being, I believe white is 1, black is 0. And we flipped it so that we got the effect that we had here, and we connected it to the distance. And finally, over here, this is where we make the scale disappear and reappear by using scale, distance, scale, multiply, the attribute math node, and then we connected it to our point instance collection, and we used our collection too, which had all these objects. Let's quickly name this last one here, magic object 3. And let's just use lowercase because I kind of used lowercase with everything else. Let's not go crazy. And this mushroom, I just want to call it mushroom 1. Cool. So now we are pretty much done. Now it's really just about having some fun. The first thing I want to do is just create an animation with this ball here, numpad 7. So I'm going to change to my timeline because we're done with the geometry node editor. So I'm going to press G. On keyframe 1, there's nothing. I'm going to press I, location. Go to frame 50. G. Chuck it over here. Press numpad 3 to check the height. Might as well get the height correct as well. I wonder if rigid body would work. Oh, I don't have a computer for that yet. In the future, I'll get a better computer and I can do better rigid body experiments. But let's press G, chuck this over here. I also want to create a delay. It will look really cool if I create a delay. I'm going to press I, location, and I just want to see how this looks. Man, this would look so much better with physics, honestly. Go to frame 100. Now, if I was doing a scene here, I wouldn't be so rash. I would look at each point and try and make it line up a little bit better and touch the ground and really focus on creating a roll effect, which takes quite a lot of time. But because this is just a quick demonstration, I'm not going to do that. It will still look pretty good for the scene. Location. Press G, chuck it over here. I, location. Let's quickly okay, let's go to keyframe 50. And let's chuck keyframe 100 to 150. Let's go to 100. Press G. I don't really have, the focus isn't really on this part of the animation, but once you get started, you just want to, this tutorial's taking too long, I have to hurry up. Cool. Press I, location. Let's quickly see how that looks. Very unnatural, but it's okay. You'll still get the idea of how the animation works. Cool. I'm very happy with that. It's good enough. Let's go to our material viewport. And let's select our sphere here. And let's give it a glossy material. We make it gold. 0.1. 0.15. There we go. Let's give the ground a material. Go to our shader editor. Press Shift A, shader, mix, connect it here. Shift A, shader. Oh, just like the Shift D. Connect this in over here. Give it a second to load. Let's make this one green. Green, but very dark. And Shift A, texture, Voronoi. Come on, here we go. Give it a second to load. Increase the scale. That's cool enough for this art style. Very happy with that. All right, now we can quickly just create holograms. So let's go to the mushrooms. Select the mushroom. Yep, numpad 1. Okay, this is the first mushroom. Right. All right, so let's give this a material. So the first thing we want to do is make it a hologram. So we press Shift A, shader, mix, connect, shader, search, sorry, Shift A, layer, weight, connect the facing over here, give it a factor of 0.9, press Shift A, shader, emission, connect that to the top, give it a factor of 5, go to the material settings, turn on alpha blend, and give it a more interesting color. Perhaps make the strength 30 to make it really pop. And I think that's pretty much it. Let's just take a closer look. All right, let's maybe just give this, see what happens if we give this more subdivisions. Not much, so I'll bring it back down to 2. Cool. So to save time, I'm just going to select this, Control C to copy. Sorry, Control C to copy. And then we'll go to mushroom 2. Click on this to break it apart. Make sure I'm looking at mushroom 2. Give this a different color. And one thing I don't like is this principled BSDF. I'm going to delete that. Shift A, shader, Shift A, shader, transparent. Connect that into the factor. Go back to mushroom 1, delete this. Shift A, shader, transparent. Connect that in there. Go to mushroom 3. Click dot. Let's change the color of mushroom 3. Let's first click on this to separate it. And then, I don't know, make it green. Go to mushroom 4. New. Select principled BSDF, X to delete, Control V to paste. And we can just connect this in here. We can delete the principled BSDF, Shift A, we replace it with a transparent BSDF. And we need to turn on alpha blend on this one. We'll do that. Something like that should be fine. And now we can go to Magic Object 1, dot, new, select that, X delete, Control V to paste, X delete, Shift A shader, and we are going to use a transparent shader. Connect that to the surface, and maybe have fun with the color here. We can go to the colors and type in object info and choose random. Control C, go to next object, new, principal BSDF, X to delete, Control V, connect it to the surface. New, delete that, Control V, connect it to the surface. And let's just see if it worked. One thing that isn't, one thing that's not on these things is the alpha blend, which is quite important if you want to get the right effect. Let's just make sure alpha blend is on every single mushroom. And let's go back to collection 1, select the ground. Let's find the ground and let's just quickly take a closer look. So currently object info isn't working as expected, it's just making everything white. So based on that, I'm going back to my magic objects and I'm just going to disconnect that. Go to magic object 2. And I'm just disconnecting that and changing the color. Go to the magic object 3, disconnect that, changing the color. I don't know, something like that should be interesting. And now we go back to the ground, take a quick look. Cool. That's quite interesting. But how big does the camera need to be to really get it? So one thing I should do maybe is track the camera to the object. So I'm going to do something like this where it's quite close, but you also want to see the effect. So let me just change this back to my timeline. Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. I think this should be something like that should be fine. Press Control Alt Numpad 0. Select my camera. Press G. Select the ball, Control P to object. So now it should be appended to the object. Let's take a quick look. Yep, it's moving with it, which is good enough for this example. I could have created a rig on top of it and then make rotation a lot easier, but this is fine. The only thing I want to do is create a delay for this, and then I think the magic result is done. Let's go back to our geometry node editor. All right, for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to do this the cheap way. And essentially, we're just going to select this over here, this empty, press numpad 7, and press G. To about there. And now when we view the camera angle, let's view the camera from this one, 3D viewport, camera, material view. It looks as if the mushrooms are growing because of the ball. Okay, so about here, we probably want to, for the sake of things, okay, but if we do that, we first have to animate this. So let's just go back a few frames. Timeline. So let's see how frame 80 looks. Frame 80 is fine. So I'm going to press I, location. We're going to go to frame 100. And now I'm going to move this over here. I've created a nice rig. This would have been looked a lot better, but it's fine. It's also to do with your stylized taste. Press I, location, go to 150. Now what I need to do here is press G, bring this back. Press I, location, and let's go back to 100 and just press play to see how this looks. So once we get to 150, we've mapped the location there. And then let's go to frame 80. We can press G. Control A, apply scale. Control Z. Let's move that here again. Press I, and then press location, and then we end the scene at frame 200.